What is up? Welcome to episode 50, the big 5-0 of the Miami Tech Pod. That was like the most dramatic intro we've done all week. But everyone, we are here in a big milestone for us. This is the 50th episode of the pod. We have all four of us together. We got Will on the ones and twos on the sound effects board. Brian and Maria all here. How are you guys doing? How are you feeling? We made it to episode 50.
I'm feeling great. I have a Pacifico beer in hand because it's a happy hour episode, and I think it's been a great year. And feel super blessed. I've been able to experience this with the three of you and become much better friends with the three of you too in the process.
Facts on that. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Plus one on the happy hour. I thought it was appropriate to pop some champagne for the big 5-0. So Maria, what are you drinking?
Sauvignon Blanc.
This is that's like a Maria drink. And Will, you're building a $1 billion company, right? So you're drinking like water or something.
I got coffee in front of me. I've not been able to peel myself away from my screen for like the past 8 hours. So I'm just staying caffeinated, jumping right from work into the pod. So I will catch up with you guys right after this. And
Will is taking one sip of iced coffee for every unread Slack message that he gets during this recording, essentially.
I've turned off all notifications. I'm good.
Amazing. Team, what fun we had in 2021 with this. We had such amazing guests on the podcast. My perspective is that it was really neat. And in many ways, this was kind of like the goal, right? In the beginning, where we wanted to highlight a bunch of really amazing entrepreneurs, investors, operators that have been building in Miami for a long time, pre-tweet, as they say. And but we also wanted to highlight some of the amazing people who've moved here. And I feel like we struck that balance, right? I think we really were able to, bridge that gap between those two types of people that are building and doing exciting things here in Miami. What do you think?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think there was a ton of interesting newcomers. And I think the interesting thing about 2021 was there was a constant flow of interesting new people coming to town. And not only that, we also discovered a lot of the existing people here who had been here for a while, who either we didn't know what they were working on, or they were working on new things because they were inspired to start building new stuff, And so, I think being a part of this podcast gave me deeper insights into everything going on down here than I otherwise would have been able to keep up with on my own.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing, that I've been reflecting on in the last few days is everything is there has been no slowdown, right? Everything is still growing at 1,000-mile-per-hour pace, from people moving here to companies securing funding to growth and acquisitions and exits and talent from that's homegrown being placed, right? There's these Miami-Dade college kids landing jobs at, tech companies with 9-figure valuations. I mean, it all seems to be working. Maria, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's my sense, at least.
Yeah, I agree. It's been so much fun. I know that Nancy's doing, and Riley and the whole news team are doing an incredible job kind of highlighting some of these homegrown stories. And I know a lot of times there's excitement around the new shiny objects, but to see folks like the four of us who kind of are born and raised here and decide to stay here and get these really great jobs and not feel like they have to leave anymore has been incredibly rewarding. And it's just been, I'm so excited for the next year.
Cool. So why don't we do this? Let's go around here, around the horn, and each give our own favorite moments of the tech pod, right? This is, we have no guest. We are just going to, this is a, forward looking and backward looking episode here to celebrate episode 50. Maria, what was your favorite moment of the Miami Tech Pod's first 49 episodes before this?
I'm going to give a moment on the podcast and then a moment off the podcast that's related to the podcast. So one of my favorite episodes was Lucy Lopez. And for those of you, especially those who are new to Miami, who are like, who the hell is Lucy Lopez? She has been a staple on Power 96 local radio station for as long as I've, listened to the radio. And she actually left there after 20 years, just a few months ago. But she's just this larger than life character. And so she wrote an article in jest about Miami, tech bros moving to Miami and her advice to them. And it was kind of a satire, but in the end, it really spoke to, trying to encourage the new folks to get involved, to give back. But just having her on the podcast, I think was probably the one I've laughed the most. And it was just so much fun and so like nerding out that like this woman that I had grown up listening to on the radio was actually like gave us the time of day to even come on the podcast. So that was incredible moment. And actually the first time I was out, and probably maybe the only time I was out, and somebody walked up to me and they were like, "Are you Maria from the Miami Tech Pod?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Those are always weird.
Yeah. No, but it was, I want to give a shout out. It was Raisa Suarez, who I've now become besties with. She's amazing. Her and her husband, Jorge, came up to me. I was out to dinner with some friends, some people visiting at, I forget where it was in Wynwood, Astra, the rooftop. And she came up to me and she asked me, and the people I was with who were friends of mine visiting, they were like, "What the hell? Like, who are you?" And I'm like, "No, I swear this never happens. No, like outside of like our family and friends, I don't think anybody listens to this podcast." But she listened. And so I was so excited.
That's not what the numbies say. That's not what the
numbers. I know. But the more you remind me of that, the more nervous I get. So let's not even talk about that. But just quick plug for Raisa. She's doing a Women in NFT project. Everybody should follow her on Twitter. She's amazing. Everybody should meet her. But that stood out to me like, oh, wow, like maybe this is resonating with people. And it was just an exciting moment.
Amazing. Will, what was your favorite moment of the podcast in the last 50 episodes here?
Yeah, I gotta say, so remember, this whole thing started, we were in the middle of the pandemic, all the influx of interest in Miami, Mayor Suarez's tweet. We were still in the middle of the pandemic, so we were doing this all virtually. We're still doing a lot of it virtually, but like we had really no choice in the beginning. And Cesar, you and I had never met, in person, even though living in the same city all these years, we've never met in person. Brian introduced us because you had reached out because you're interested in getting this pod together. And then we all kind of coalesced around your idea. So first of all, thank you for birthing this podcast and Brian for bringing us all together. But we did an episode in person with Delian from Founders Fund. Like that was the first moment where I got a chance to meet you in real life. And it was actually just really cool because I think at that point we were like 20 episodes in, we were starting to get into a real cadence. And then it was just like super dope to like actually finally meet up in person. I wasn't able to be on the episode because I had to leave in the middle of that time slot, but we all met up with also Brian Hernandez, who's our producer. It was just a really cool moment, to kind of just say like, we tweeted out a picture, like started in the pandemic. Now we're here, all in person.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like when you meet people in person after only having known them via Zoom, and I got a job in the midst of a pandemic and had never met any of my coworkers in person, but was he as tall as you pictured him to be?
Yes.
Was that?
Well, you never know how tall people are when you meet them over Zoom.
Do you want to rephrase it? Was I as short as you pictured me?
You all don't know this, but Cesar's 6'6" now.
That's right. He's a basketball player.
I'm a cool 5'7". Right?
Yeah. It was just awesome. Like it actually now I'm craving to do more and more in-person podcasts with you guys. So I'm hoping here in 2022 we got a lot of them, lined up. I know, just a little tease, for the next few episodes, a lot of you guys are going to be at the Miami Hack Houses trying to get some good content and some interviews and things like that. So I'm just like super excited for more in-person content in 2022. And looking back on 2021, that was just such an awesome moment, doing all these things, this podcast kicking it off, doing virtually, and then meeting up in person that day. That was awesome.
Yep. I love it. you know, Will is, you know, just as charming in person than he is in the metaverse. It's, you know, it was a delight, but no, I echo all of that, man, for sure. Big +1. Brian, you're up. What was your favorite moment?
So I think I have my favorite episode and I have my favorite moment, right? And so my favorite episode was episode 1. And the reason for that was I'd never done a podcast before. I'd always thought about podcasts, and I was just like, this is either going to be difficult or I won't come off as polished enough or whatever, 1,000 excuses, right? But it was like from the time when Cesar proposed the idea to when we recorded our first episode was like a week, right? And the fact that we did that, we got it out, and then we kept doing it, right? Because I was afraid that we were going to do one episode, I was gonna be like, this was dumb. Like, why are we doing this? But we kept going, and that was like, and that sparked a ton of great conversations. We met a ton of interesting people as a result. It's opened a lot of doors. But my favorite moment was I was at one of the Chris Adamo Natalia happy hours at Freehold, and I'm having a conversation with someone I haven't seen in a long time, and then a couple other random people, and someone goes, I heard this really interesting thing on this podcast, on the Miami Tech Pod. Like, they didn't realize it was me. And then they're like, and then the dude quoted me. And I was like, that was me, dude. I'm the one who said that. And he's like, no, it wasn't. That was Cesar. Caesar's the one who, I was like, no, dude, don't you recognize the voice?
So to be fair, everybody just considers this a Cesar podcast because the same thing happened to me at that same
They thought you were Cesar also?
No, I was at this happy hour at the Natalia and Chris happy hour. This guy, we introduced ourselves to each other, and then he's like, I asked Cesar if he wants a drink, and he's like, oh, is that Cesar from the podcast? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. And then he sees us two together, and he's like, oh, you're on the podcast too, aren't you? I'm like, no, it's Cesar's podcast, basically. But yeah. Cesar, you are the voice and soul of this podcast.
It's a team. It's a team. Those are the worst moments.
Caesar's voice is iconic now and has come to be an iconic voice of Miami Tech. Like, I read headlines in Cesar's voice.
Weird flex.
In my head,
What a weird flex.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I want to kind of focus on in this episode, because I think we don't do enough we don't do enough of like highlighting what we're working on. I mean, Will, we did dedicate an episode to you, Feel Special, and what you're building, but there's a lot of people that have actually said that to us. Like, hey, we want to hear more about like what you guys are doing in tech, what you're building, like, what's on the horizon for you all. So why don't we just go around and jump in, right? Will, I think I'll just say it, like, have the most exciting thing going on right now. But what are you working on in 2022? What are you focused on?
I wouldn't say I have the most exciting. I think we're all doing some really epic stuff. I know behind the scenes, a lot of us are working on things that we're not ready to publicly announce yet. So I love everything that this pod and our our whole team are working on. From our standpoint, we're building, continuing to build the Cryptoys platform at On-Chain Studios. We're scaling the company in a big way. We're getting a lot of interest from licensing partners to put their IP on the Cryptoys platform. We're also just full steam ahead in taking the whole thing to market. This is not a kind of a run-of-the-mill kind of NFT drop where you see these like profile pic projects and things like that. This is a pretty big lift of a project because there's a lot of like 3D animation and gaming and interactivity and all that stuff. So like it's a big lift. So like, we're scaling the team, we're working with licensing partners, bringing on some new folks on board, and just, super exciting. So, it's been a whirlwind. I'm learning a lot of this stuff as I go, building a gaming company and, at some parts a media company and an original IP and creating stories and characters and all this stuff. But it's been fun. And what's interesting, and many of you know this, is this whole company started off as a side project for my daughter. So it's pretty cool when I'm done with my day and I go downstairs, like, she's who I report to at the end of the day, my 8-year-old daughter. She's the one asking, like, what did you do today at Cryptoys? Like, like what's the progress? What did we accomplish today, and where are we going? And what's really cool about it is, you know, she's starting to like get entrepreneurship and like be exposed to entrepreneurship. So like, for example, the other day, you know, we launched our new website a couple of months back, and she's like, "Oh, hey dad, you're launching the new website at cryptoys.io, but since it's a new website, how are people going to know to go to cryptoys.io?" So she's effectively saying, "Dad, what's your go-to-market strategy? How are you marketing the website?
Yeah, how are you going to get domain authority, Dad?
Exactly.
Like, I just don't understand. Like, is that searchable? Like, have you thought through your SEO strategy? Like,
yeah,
can you
Does Tori
report?
need an internship?
Can you report and make me a
Yeah,
sandwich?
exactly. Hired.
I think you should have a bidding war for Tori's services as our youngest intern.
I love it. No, it's been terrific, and just like bonding with her over this stuff. I went into her room the other day, and she's got sketches of Cryptoys in her notebook of like concepts she wants to see, and that's been the most fulfilling part of this whole thing, is like kind of bonding with her over it, and seeing really what was kind of, you know, her idea and inspiration kind of come to life. So it's been fun, and hopefully we can share a lot of the cool stuff we're working on with you guys, you know, pretty soon.
That's really great, man. What about you, Brian? What are you working on in 2022? You know, this is a good time for, you know, shameless plug. Don't feel modest here. Will just said he's building an NFT media empire. You go.
I don't know. I mean, I'm considering building an NFT media empire too around this whole JPEG Morgan stuff.
that is like, I don't think people truly understand how valuable this group you created is, Brian. Like it is wild to me that I'm in a group chat with Steve Aoki.
I mean, Steve Aoki, and also what's wild is how much he is dropping on NFTs on a daily basis. Like, the dude's got an insatiable collection at this point. But no, I think if there's one thing I realized from like 2020 or 2021 rather, was that like I think I'm pretty good at like bringing people together to build stuff, and like this being one thing, you know, JPEG Morgan, like sort of like me getting out of my own way is really the key, right? You know, like in the past, I always thought I have to do everything, but then just bringing really interesting and smart people together, magic happens, right? And so, you know, like the other sort of side project I launched back in 2021 was the Deal Flow Miami thing, and there was like $40 million worth of deals.
Explain that for the folks that don't know.
So that was another case of like Jared, my partner on that. I had never met him in person, and we met up randomly at some Starbucks like the day before we decided we were going to launch this thing, after having gone back and forth for weeks. And a lot of it was due to, I kept getting a lot of inbound of people who thought I was an investor, and wanted me to like either invest in their companies or help them find investments here in Miami, you know, whether it was new people in town or existing people. And one of my big pet peeves was always investment. VC in Miami always felt like it was this like old boys club that if you didn't have access to the network, you would never make it through the front door. And so Deal Flow Miami was this newsletter where we were semi-curating or semi-filtering and highlighting deals every couple weeks and stuff like that. And there's been several $1 million in capital deployed from the members of the newsletter. And we're talking about like 300, 400 people who signed up to get the deal flow, right? You know, it's been on hiatus for a little bit, you know, now because I've been busy with the kid and all that stuff. But like, that was one of these things where it's like, I could have tried to do that on my own, but I realized like by working with others on this, you know, it ended up being much better than just doing something on my own. And now I look at like JPEG Morgan, and I think there's this whole space of different avenues of things that we could do in this space. And because it's all decentralized and all that, like I could carve out a corner of this whole space in JPEG Morgan and still be tons of room for, you know, the daily Ralpha reports, or, you know, or any of these other things that we've all come to know and love, you know.
I would venture to say that JPEG Morgan is the most potent collection of NFT knowledge on the planet.
I mean, that's a bold statement. There's
Like,
some pretty like old school like crypto chat groups, like crypto punk chat groups and things like that are probably swinging some hefty wallets around, you know, where the whales are hanging out. But I
I mean,
mean,
there's whales in JP
yeah,
Morgan.
yeah, and
There's
look, and
like people throwing millions of dollars into NFTs, like, and like casually mentioning it on that chat.
yeah, no. The fact that like one of my wife's classmates from high school just casually bought one doodle worth the equivalent of a mid-sized house the other day, like in passing. I was like, I told her this, and she was like, I can't believe that he did this, you know. And he was a previous guest on our show, you know, and it just seemed like just so much money being thrown around, but like the group moves so fast and there's so much knowledge.
No, I think there's an important lesson there too. And like, I love the Deal Flow newsletter, and the lesson being that like sometimes people overthink things or think that they have to like build out this whole product. And it's really just like, hey, I see a need. I'm going to build out a very basic version of something. And if it takes off, then I know I can grow it. But it was just, it's very, you know, you had a lot of tools that you could just use that are readily available. And it's just about really the human element of curating that and putting those two together. And it doesn't take a lot of, you know, work outside of that. So I'm a big fan of both groups and very happy I'm involved in both groups.
Well said, Maria. What are you working on, head down, focus on in 2022?
So I wear a few hats on the Florida Funder side. Quick plug, we're an early stage venture capital fund and angel network. So always looking for great deals. Really exciting to see all the companies that are coming out of the state. And so happy to be part of the team, which is an incredible team and kind of recognized as the most active VC in the state. And so constantly on the hunt for great deals. In my role specifically, I'm focused on supporting our portfolio companies. So really figuring out how I can add value and help them grow has been really fun, and kind of seeing the ecosystem grow. So that's on one side. And then on the refresh side, continuing to tell the incredible stories of what's happening down here, stories like what Will's building. It's exciting to just see the influx of capital and incredible entrepreneurs and talent that are coming out of the area. So constantly asking ourselves, what does the community need and how can we help? Because that's really our whole mission. And I'm just very grateful to work with incredible people, with our whole writing team, led by Nancy Dahlberg, who, for those of you who've been in the ecosystem much of time, she's a local legend. And Riley, who has kind of come on board and really blown it out, and is just an incredible writer. And really, we're really lucky to have both of them, as well as our team of writers on the team. A lot of like contributing writers like Jadon Johnson, who was just on our podcast last week. So, and then kind of something that came out of Refresh was this like Women in Miami Tech group that I run. And we just had our monthly happy hour this Tuesday. And it's grown a ton since the pandemic, and learning from each other. And I think what's great is like everybody, like the broader Miami community, just wants to help each other. And so having that safe space where people can ask for advice, offer help for each other has been really rewarding. So kind of trying to continue to build that out and figure out how I can help more women get into tech.
Well said. That's great. I'll go on both fronts. To take a step back, my favorite moment, which I did not say earlier in the episode of the last 50 episodes, I think was the Cameo episode, right? Like having Steven, the founder and CEO of Cameo, on the pod, really talking about a few things that I thought were super interesting and valuable for our listeners. Like, one, his journey in tech and entrepreneurship, his being like really transparent and straightforward about how like the company almost fell apart in multiple stages, right? Like embracing that struggle, saying like it wasn't an overnight success, like our massive launch failed, right? Like things like that, I think were like just super valuable for listeners because they're real. Like these are the real stories of how like building a company is, right? And then the other thing is, I think he laid out a really strong roadmap that was inspiring in how to have a successful career in tech, right? He went to work at LinkedIn. There were a lot of smart people. He absorbed a ton of knowledge, and there was a lot of like great mentors of his that said like, take this leap, go start your own company, right? And I think that was neat to have on the pod, and I think it kind of like it's a great theme for building in Miami Tech, in my opinion. What I'm working on in 2022, we've mentioned it. I started a role at Picasso, one of the faster growing prop tech startups in America. Definitely a unicorn, and we're trying to make second home ownership possible and enjoyable for more people. Right? It's my role in particular is not on the tech side. Not an engineer. I'm on the government relations team, right, and help navigate a bunch of regulatory issues for the company, educating government stakeholders, really building community relations programs, all of that, so that the folks that do focus day in and day out on scaling the company are well received in communities, and making sure that as a company we're being responsible actors and partnering with government. And it's something that is a growing kind of need inside of tech companies. I would say every major tech company that is either in or tangentially near a regulated industry has invested in professionals that know the ins and outs of government, because it could be a barrier to growth. It could be an accelerant. It could be a bunch of things that you need to have like a smart strategy on. So I think that's what I'm focused on. And then the other thing is, highlighting more entrepreneurs and builders and investors on this podcast. I think it's like, we've been talking about this a lot among the four of us, but like there's a great opportunity to just like, build this to be an even bigger podcast where we're highlighting more stories. Like, the Hack Week episode next week is going to be amazing, right? We're really going to go in and be on the ground on like what some of those moments where we're going to look back 5-6 years from now and say like, man, remember this like tiny idea or small company or small group of individuals that were like, in some waterfront house building is now like employing 15,000 people in one of the biggest companies in Miami. Like we're watching that history being written right now, and we're going to have a lot of those moments in 2022, in my opinion. So it's fine.
Yeah, a great example of that is episode 4. We had Austin of QuickNode on, and he just raised in 46 episodes. What now? Like in the span of that? Yeah,
it is a like one of the fastest growing companies in crypto, I would say.
And obviously most of us know Austin from years ago, and so seeing that path has just been like, what? Like, this is amazing. I mean, I think we all knew he was bound for it, but seeing everything that's happened in the matter of this last year has been incredibly rewarding. So I agree. Like, I think in just another year looking back, we'll already see the fruits of a lot of the labor of the folks building right now.
I'd love to see someone do some sort of like back of napkin Excel sheet of, if you had dropped $5,000 into every single guest on our show this year's companies, like how much would your portfolio be worth, like after all the markups and raises and all that stuff at the time of the episode?
Didn't Austin do that for like all of the refresh demo days or something? Didn't you tell me the story?
I don't know if it was for the demo days or if it was the guests on SuperConf. I think it was.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. The guests on SuperConf. Yeah. The guests on SuperConf.
And he was like, if I had put $5,000 or taken the like open bar budget from SuperConf and just invested in these companies, he's like, I would have been a millionaire or something like that.
To give context, SuperConf is a conference that Brian and Austin organized many, many years ago, and then they had organized kind of a 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they did it for 2 years, and then it took a hiatus, and then organized it March of 2020, right when everything shut down. And that kind of Austin took the lead on that. And
I have a soft spot for SuperConf because that's where I launched Live Ninja, was SuperConf 2012.
Wow. 10 years ago.
Yeah. February 2012. And it was amazing. I have the sign. If you came to Live Ninja's office in Wynwood, that was the first thing you saw, was that SuperConf sign, hanging in the hallway there. And it was there in the Miami Beach Convention Center on that second floor. I remember the guest judges. We had Brad Feld fly in for it and a few others, and just got good memories from those days.
But by the way, like what you just said about like tracking the performance of every single company or project that Miami Tech Pod guests have been involved in. Someone did this. There's a link somewhere. I think I like tweeted about it or will, if I haven't, where they looked at Glassdoor's best places to work in tech. And they looked at the performance of those companies against the S&P 500, and it outperformed the S&P 500 2x, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, obviously there's a bunch of different variables here, but like the quick take is like, if you focus on culture and people love working somewhere, they're probably going to work really hard and be mission oriented, and it's going to be, reflective in the product and performance of the company.
Yeah, I mean, look, we could consider that this is like self-selecting and that we are slightly biased somehow because we picked interesting people that we thought, were nice people, right? And had interesting stories. And those people tend to like build like positive cultures in their companies, not always the case, but like usually, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, look, there's all these other sort of like indicators. You could say like, if you bet on female CEOs, you outperform the S&P 500, and things like that. So
good stuff. What else, team? This was a fun little recap episode here. I like the there's a lot of feels in this episode.
I think we should take sort of like educated guesses or bets or like things we think are going to happen in 2022, right? Predictions. It took me so long to get to that word.
Brian, this is how we know you didn't listen to a couple episodes. We did this on the episode with Ryan a little bit, but you weren't there. So what are your predictions for 2022, Brian?
I'm going to continue my streak of not listening well.
I gave one on that episode where I said I think Open Store is going to go public in 2022.
If it makes you feel better, I think I made a prediction that I don't have any recollection about.
Well, that's because we were like,
maybe I didn't make a prediction.
It was
go
like
ahead,
a
Brian.
sunset happy hour recording, but
yeah.
I'll make a few predictions.
All right, Will, you go first. Brian's going to gather his predictions, and then we'll wrap. Go.
Man, they're not really like crazy predictions, but like just I think things that I think we'd be obviously bullish on. Like I think Miami is going to continue compounding growth at a crazy rate. I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this was a fad," and I'm just waiting for the bubble to burst and hype, and everybody's going to move back. Listen, I was just walking around Wynwood. I just bought a new condo in Edgewater, so I was like walking around Wynwood and Edgewater and all that stuff, and what's fascinating to me is just looking around. First of all, the energy in Wynwood is crazy. And then looking around and just cranes everywhere. Okay. You look up and the city is just being built right before your eyes. Like, and we're like, lifelong Miamians, like, born and raised, grew up in the city. I've never seen this kind of, energy and new construction and all this all happening at once, all together and coalescing. So couldn't be more bullish on Miami, and I just think the folks that are kind of betting against it, that it's a fad or it's a trend and it's going to reverse, are going to be on the losing side of that bet, in my opinion.
It's impossible to keep up right now.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
It's escape velocity.
Yeah, it is past escape velocity for sure. And then I predict you will see a few more flagship tier 1 VC funds setting up Miami offices within this calendar year. And I expect announcements.
Was there a little wink there? Like, this is the case?
I have a feeling I know what Will's talking about, because I was at an event last night and one of those flagship ones just said outright, like, we're going to open up a big office and we're looking for space right now. So, yeah.
What does that flagship VC's name rhyme with?
I don't know.
Or is it too long to rhyme? I'm just kidding. So all right, since I'm obviously not good at listening to past episodes, and my predictions may have already been predicted, but I think
Brian only listens to the episodes he's in. Like,
yeah, I listen to them to
he loves to hear
wake myself up, and
all right,
but so I think, look, there was a lot of announcements over the last year and a half that we saw of like 500 jobs here, 1,000 jobs here. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of that materialize this year. And you're going to see those jobs getting filled. So this is going to be the big year of like the great rehire or the great hiring or whatever you want to call it, right? And that's going to require like importing people, retraining people, like poaching from existing companies and so on, right? But overall, it's going to be a massive boon to the local GDP. But I think as far as like specific predictions, I think we're going to start seeing a ton of people moving into Wynwood. I think we're going to see Facebook or maybe Apple announce a campus in Wynwood. That's my prediction. I haven't heard any rumors on this. I'm just guessing. And it'll be a real campus. It won't be some sales office. It'll be like a product development team is put there.
Yeah.
And it'll be super large or something.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, team. Great episode. Anything else for the good of the order here?
Stay tuned. This is a big year for the Miami Tech Pod. I will say that we had a team meeting, a co-host meeting the other night, and discussed a lot of cool ideas and initiatives to level up the podcast over the course of this calendar year. So if you like the content so far over the first 50 episodes, we plan on making the next 50 even better. So stay tuned. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And please share this episode and content with folks in the scene, because we want to get the word out about the pod and also feature a lot of great people here in the scene. So if you also know guests that should be featured on the podcast, please send them our way.